Hey guys, Matthew here, and today I want to update you guys on my Road to Headhunter series. So today is basically the day that we made the first 10,000 chaos. Now at least this is on excellence. I want to talk about, of course, how much money we've actually made and how we went about doing it, and of course how long I've spent playing the game, because clearly that's a very important thing, right? The money per hour. So let's talk about how much money we've actually made. 30 exalts there. We do have 10,000 chaos of the excellence, but realistically it's a bit more than that because this doesn't consider any rares, doesn't consider watchstones, doesn't consider anything like that. So outside of this 10,000 chaos, which right now is about 66 exalts or so, we have this chest piece that I showcased in my last video. I'll be crafting this up today to do something with it. So that's another 5 exalt or so value there. We've got about 10 exalt worth in value on our watchstones, the biggest one being areas with rituals altars have 4. I'll talk about that in a minute, the strategy. So about 10x worth of watchstones, and then on my tree and all that, I've got 2 inspired learnings and some clusters worth about 5x. So I do need to add another 20x to the 66 or so. So we're at about 85 exalt or so complete value created in the challenge so far, which puts us about halfway there if I was to just sell literally everything, which is what I will do, because or at least when the challenge is about to be over, I will basically nuke the character, sell everything off, sell the watchstones, literally everything, right? So I want to talk about how I went about making this currency, how long I've spent doing so, and of course I want to talk about something which is called self-inflicted restrictions, which is something that I decided to do for this challenge in order to make it more challenging. So I'm gonna start with that actually. So let's talk about the self-inflicted restrictions that I made for myself in the challenge in order to make it more challenging. The first thing I did is that I made it so I'm not allowed to use any of my master missions. So as you can see, I've stockpiled up to 62 Jun master missions here through running Hayward Hamlet with focused investigation. It's a really, really good way to get a bunch of these through just blasting maps. I could easily just finish the Headhunter challenge today if I was to run these 62 Jun missions and, sell a bunch of Ashling benches or challenges and all that, but I'm not gonna do that, right? So that's definitely slowing my progress down. Another thing is I'm not allowed to sell any maps. As you can see, I have pretty much hundreds of red maps at this point, and I'm not selling any of them. I even have some Guardian maps in there. I have some, Shaper, Elder Guardians, synthesized maps in my unique maps and all that, and I'm not selling any of them. That is also a self-inflicted restriction in order to make it the challenge a little bit harder, but also the reason for that is that I want to get a little bit more of a better idea of how good the strategy that I'm working with is without any of outside things affecting it. Now let's talk about what the strategy is. Now I've already mentioned it. Essentially we are doing essences plus rituals. So for the watchstones, for ritual altar, if you're not aware, this gets multiplied by Secrets of the Stone, so I'm getting 5 ritual altars every single map where ritual is there, and because I'm using Sacred Lands, that's about every 5 or 6 maps, which is pretty good considering how fast we are running these maps. It's really just like out can go very quick. No sort of investment at all. Paid in Blood gives us an additional 2 rerolls for a total of 3, which is pretty massive. Most of the time, however, you're not going to be able to use all 3 of these rerolls because that's just a lot of rerolls, and that's just a lot of favor or tribute that you would need in order to be able to do that. But you're still getting 100% increased chance for ritual altars with special rewards, which is really, really good. It means that overall you're getting more value out of your rituals. I'm using focused investigation despite the fact that I can't run Jun, and the reason for that is because, well, I wasn't going to allow myself to run Harvest either. That's another of my self-inflicted restriction. I am running Harvest. I'm actually running every single league mechanic that I encounter, but I'm not running Harvest for profit. So I made a guide like last week about Harvest and how to really maximize the currency that you make out of it, but I'm not utilizing this guide at all. The only thing that I'm rolling with Harvest is clusters for myself. And I'm not selling these for profit either, right? So I'm really just trying to essentially use only the ritual and the essence in order to make currency. Just like when I was farming the beast, I was only basically using beast farming to make money. Unfortunately, the beast farming strategy turned out to be absolutely awful. So yeah, not really utilizing Harvest either. Now, of course, when I do come across something like, for example, a Reforge keeping prefixes or suffixes or whatever, I'm going to keep those and sell them or use them you know, because if you're a regular player, you would also be doing that. There's no reason to just not take them, but I'm not like, you know, using every single one of my reforges and all that to try to make profit out of it. So that's pretty much what I've been doing in terms of the strategy. Now, one thing I want to quickly note about is talking about the essences. A lot of people have been asking me this lately. When do I use Remnants of Corruption? And the rule of thumb is very simple. You use it on purple essences. So Scorn, Envy, Misery, and Dread. And the reason for that is because when you use it on a purple essence, it can become one of the corrupted essences, which are worth quite a bit, especially sold in bulk. But you also want to look at the more expensive and more sought after essences, things like Greed or Contempt, for example, or Rage or, you know, Wrath. All of those, if you're using them on, for example, a Shrieking, if it's got multiple Shrieking in the same essence, you're going to want to use one as well, because if you turn, let's say, a Shrieking of Greed into a Deafening of Greed, and then two or so other Screaming into Shrieking, another Shrieking into Deafening, you're definitely getting more value than the value of your Remnant of Corruption. So there's a little bit of knowledge there when it comes to the better essences, but I kind of just go by feel. But of course, the purple essences is like your go-to. You always want to use it there because, you know, if it turns into a corrupted essence, it's worth quite a bit. So otherwise, when it comes to the strategy, this is essentially the, I guess you could say, the most stable, consistent money per hour, because you're not investing any more than the two chaos, right? Giving you 2 essences, then you're getting 1 additional one because of controlled destruction. So 3 essence minimum per map. Of course, sometimes it's going to be even more than that. And then amplified, so the essences are higher tier. You're investing 2 chaos. It's physically impossible to lose currency with this, honestly. Unless you go out and just use Remnant of Corruptions on every single essence, then yeah, you're not going to make a whole lot of money there. Then Ritual is coming in and being basically like the more gambling-ish sort of way to make currency. One way to make this a little bit more consistent is that every time that you encounter a ritual, you can buy these vessels here, right? You can buy ritual vessels and make them into blood-filled vessels, and then you can sell the blood-filled vessels in bulk for an extra about 10 to 15 chaos additional value for the fact that it's blood-filled. Now the problem with this is that you can't sell blood-filled in bulk on the website. You have to sell them through various means, like for example TFT, which is a little bit annoying. But otherwise, I'm also selling contracts, 2 to 3C in bulk for unsorted. There's also blueprints. Those are anywhere between 10 and 25C or so. So that's pretty much what's making the biggest value. Now I do want to basically quickly note efficiency. I think the reason why this challenge is going so slowly, right? I've spent nearly 40 hours on this so far. Now, of course, the first couple days we didn't really make any currency because we were leveling up the character, or leveling up the character and setting up and all that. And then we had 1 day of beast farming where we made almost no currency at all, not even 2x an hour, which was pretty bad. And then now we're doing Essence and Ritual, which is a lot more interesting. But I have this thing on my Twitch called Teach Me Crafting. And what Teach Me Crafting is essentially is where people pay me channel points, which is a free currency you get from watching the stream, in order for me to teach them things about the game, which is especially, well, going to be crafting related. But this is very, very, very time consuming. So a lot of the time I end up, nearly half of the time that I'm actually playing, I'm actually explaining things, right? So that's not good when it comes to making currency, and that's kind of what I've come to realize with this challenge and with how long it's taken compared to my typical like Headhunter challenges being only a few days, is that if you're not really focused on making currency, if you're just kind of like playing the game, I guess you could say mindlessly, or at least not being efficient with your time, you are going to make very little currency. So now this is something that's widely known already, but this challenge and my results from it goes to show how much less money you make per hour if you're not being efficient. And of course, this time that I'm spending explaining different things on my stream is obviously not time that I'm spending playing the game and mapping and making currency. Another thing is skipping league mechanics that are not worthwhile is also very, very important. So for example, if I encounter a breach and it's an Esh breach, I should not run it. I have been running it. I've been running literally every single league mechanic I'm encountering, but I shouldn't. Same thing with Ritual. If Ritual is a survive or a circle, you should skip it. It's not efficient to do it. You should only do the kill ones, because quite frankly, they're way too time consuming, and the vast majority of the time the rewards are not worth it. Now, they are worth it if you're somebody who has basically little to no currency at all, but overall, when you look at the bigger picture, it's actually not worth it. So anyways, this is actually the findings that I wanted to share with you guys, as well as you know, the methodology that I've been going about how to make my currency so far through the challenge, and you know, how far we've come so far. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Before I go, as always, I want to say a massive thank you to my supporters: Flame Scorpion, Richard, Willie, Alex, Jordan, Emil, Raymond, Tim, Scott, Lost with the Map, Grimoire, Nathaniel, Kremis, Justin, Kevin, the other Justin, So Nice, Axel, Mercury, and Bitizen. So it's a massive thank you to everybody listed down below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.